actually currently in this moment in the midst of a huge identity shift. This is a huge expansive season for me. I actually was going to prepare my deck for today before Egypt, but my intuition was like, don't do that. Stuff's gonna be going down, so prepare afterwards. So is it okay if we just get raw and real? Do I have permission for that? All right, let's do this. So my handle on social media is Let Go and Discover, because I believe that all there is for us to do is let go of who we think we are in order to discover who we really can be. And when I got this distinction for myself, I was actually with my executive coach. I was 40 years old, and I was like, my life's a mess. Everything that I've done is disconnected. Like, none of the dots connected. And I was like, I'm a disaster. And he was like, well, if you could do, you know the question, right? Like, if you could do anything for the rest of your life, and money didn't matter, what would you do? You know that question. And I was like, this is unsustainable because I'd be a mother. And I can't keep having babies. This is not gonna work. And what I learned is that for me, being a coach and a mentor carries a lot of the same feelings as being a mother, because there's nothing more precious to me than seeing like my kids walk for the first time. And when you're coaching, you see that kind of thing with people where you're like, something that they thought wasn't possible becomes possible. So that's the little backstory of Let Go and Discover. So, wow, seeing this image. This is me at 36 years old. How many of you are in your mid-30s or younger? Just curious. Yeah, a large part of the room. So at 36 years old, I was losing the 7-figure skateboard and snowboard business that I built in my 20s. I was getting a divorce. I had just filed for bankruptcy, and I was a new single mom. I also was a mega introvert, had a lot of social anxiety, and was really unhappy because I was like just shrinking. Like in the relationship that I was in, he wasn't really supportive. He didn't ever want me to like look good, because he was like, I don't want you to look good. I don't want anyone looking at you in a way of like desire. It was kind of a wild thing. And as I was preparing for this, there's actually very few photos of me from back then, because I didn't like being in front of the camera. But this is stretchy and it feels crazy, but here is the identity shift from 6 days ago. I'm still processing a lot of this myself, but yeah. So I went deep into the Sahara Desert. I also went into this like desert oasis, and I did this epic photo shoot to really bring myself into this next era of my life. Like, I'm in an era of epic moves only. Like, let's just walking. And this is such a experience that I share with you, because my ex-husband and I, this photo shoot, I've wanted to do it my whole entire life. I've always wanted to do an epic photo shoot. And my ex-husband was like, why? That's so vain. And then even in my family, there was a conversation that like, why would you need photos of yourself? My sister used to go to glamour shots and get photos. And I always thought she was like the most beautiful woman. I mean, really one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. But then like my mom and sisters and everybody was like, she's so vain. She just loves herself. She needs to see her. There's a whole thing. So this is kind of a reclamation moment that I'm sharing with you. It feels so insane to be doing something like this at 52 years old. And I was reflecting last night, because this one image of me in the gold dress, you see me with people, but for a while I was just kind of walking on my own because there's a drone. And it reminded me a lot of leadership, because as you're stepping on the spine of this sand dune, some steps you take and there's solid ground beneath you. Other steps you take and it just like falls away. You're stumbling, you're trying not to trip, you're trying to look like you have your shit together because people are watching. And the whole time I'm just like, suck it in, mew, smile! And I'm like trying at the same time. But yeah, this is just like a little preview of like what has been happening and going on, and it's kind of like I've experienced transformation in like inside, but I've never visually seen it. So thank you for letting me share this with you today. All right, so one of the things about letting go of identity is you have to start being a yes, because the universe is gonna have some treats for you. See, I believe that destiny is you following your highest pathway and timeline. But we're human, we have free will. So we can, make other choices at times. And then fate are these intersection points to knock you back on your destiny. And so I really believe that, when it comes to life, you don't get a map, but you will get invitations. And so I'm gonna share 3 invitations with you. On the left is my family. So I ended up getting remarried to the man of my dreams and having our second son. So the older son is with my first marriage, my husband. And then Nico, the little guy. Listen, if you are in that situation, you don't want to X out the father of your children. So I have a husband, and I have a husband, and we all hang out sometimes. But I met my husband on a stretchy Christmas day when someone invited me to a Christmas party, and I'm an introvert, so I was like, fuck no, I'm not doing that. But my body was like, yes. And I just ignored my brain, and I met my husband on a yes. One day, I was in a mastermind, and someone asked me, said like, I have one spot for the spiritual pilgrimage to go to Egypt, and I was a full body fuck yes, although my brain was like, wait, what? We don't even like women. We're gonna I grew up a tomboy, one of the guys, and so I was like, why am I going on a feminine divine pilgrimage to Egypt, a place that I've never talked about, never desired to go to? But that again was a yes. And one of the teachings that I have for you today is that if you want to expand and let go of identity, you're gonna have to get used to doing NBDVs. Never been done before. Because our lives, our results consist of what we take action on. We usually take action on what we're comfortable with. But when you're playing on the edges, when you're nerve-sided, that's when you're in that zone of never been done before, and it's where you stretch and expand. And then the third that I'll share, no pressure, Chelsea, I'm putting you and Fempire up with meeting the man of my dreams and having a soul experience in Egypt. But I met Chelsea in Maui at Andy's Body Base Camp, and she was like, will you come to Fempire and speak? Because we had connected over Egypt. And I was like, no. I'm gonna be just getting back from a 21-day pilgrimage in Egypt, and I'm gonna have 3 days to then fly to Denver. And she was kind of like, okay. And I had all these reasons why not to argue against. Don't we do that, right? Like, I'm gonna just be getting home. My husband would have just watched our son for so long. This doesn't make sense. But there was something in my body that leaned in for it. So for me, what I've kind of realized, especially more recently, is that I'm really paying attention to my body. So when it contracts, it doesn't always mean a no, but it makes me stop and like pause and think. And then if my body kind of softens, I'm like, okay, this is safe. But the one that I really want to focus on is when your body is just like, fuck yes. These are sparks. And these, to me, are those moments of fate that come to knock you back on your destiny. Because the stretch between you and your next self is often between that yes and no. So it kind of lives in that area. So just like, be a yes to invitations. So here are some of my identities. We won't go through all of them, but I grew up half Chinese, half Mexican, good girl, straight A student, was supposed to be a doctor. Like my whole life I was told, you can be any doctor you want. And I was like, you can be anything you want, any doctor that you want. I was in my junior year of college when I met my first mentor in entrepreneurship, and I just fell in love. So I became this total rebel in my 20s. Really counterculture, as I said, black sheep, party animal, skate, snowboard. My family actually disowned me in this era because I wasn't a doctor, but I wanted to follow my truth. And then in my 30s, I had a 7-figure retail business, skate and snowboard, and as I mentioned, wife, mother, and then single mother, and an introvert. And interestingly enough, through little stackable practices and moments, I've actually flipped on the Myers-Briggs from introvert to extrovert.
Wow.
And here's what I've realized. So I used to go to events and I'm like, oh, I'm so tired after this whatever. And people were like, oh, it's because you're an introvert. Introverts lose energy around others. So then I started taking on like, oh, I'm an introvert. Plus my family's like, we're all introverts. So I just labeled myself as introvert. What I have discovered is my truth. I'm not an introvert. I'm an empath. So when I'm around other people, I absorb their energies and emotions. So that's one reason why I was getting tired around others. The second reason is I always had such high social anxiety around like, do they think I'm weird? Am I saying something wrong? And all those distortions running through my head was what making the exhaustion occur. In my 40s, I got my MBA, was working in corporate. I dropped out, became a consultant, had a branding agency, and then I was really just super type A and a perfectionist. And towards, in 2020, as we were all reevaluating our lives, I started thinking, what do I really want to do next? It's got to be legacy work, because I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And I realized what I wanted to do was show others how to do what I did, which is never choose between your kid and your career, or just have that freedom from the 9 to 5. So I started a business, had a program called Out to Launch Academy. I have one of my Out to Launch Academy superstars is actually here. Billy, it's so great to have you here. But really showing people how to take their expertise and genius from 9 to 5 into consulting or coaching.
Super rad.
And then after Egypt, really started seeing myself as a way shower and healer, which I did not see that coming. And for somebody who's been a tomboy their whole life, being a feminine divine leader definitely wasn't there, but what I have learned is I've been really working hard, not hard, but like in devotion, I'll say, for the last 18 months on what I'll call your soul codes. So each one of us was born on a particular day, time, and in a particular location, and it informs your natal chart. Now, if you're anything like me before, I used to think astrology is BS, because how can everyone born in the same month have the same attributes? But it's not just where the sun was, it's where the moon was, and where Mercury was, like all these stars and planets, there's like this snapshot. So by looking at my natal chart, and human design, and gene keys, I learned my own blueprint. It's literally like what I'm anointed and appointed for in this lifetime. It's like my truth. And I call that doing your clarity codes, but when I started doing that is when I was like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be a feminine divine leader? Like, okay, but it's like the essence of me that I'm starting to discover along the way. Does that kind of make sense? It's actually like when you get your soul codes and you see it, it's like everything that you've ever known in your bones, but you didn't know it up here because of indoctrination or etc. So when I got back from Egypt, the first time back in 2024, I really started dismantling this idea of what does success look like. Because for me, success has always meant doing a lot of hard work, going above and beyond, and bending over backwards, and doing the most, always. And just that overproducing, chasing, pressure energy. And so and that's like not even masculine energy, that's wounded masculine energy. So I started like seeing how much I was not really operating in masculine energy, but wounded masculine energy. And what I realized is that we think we want freedom, but that's actually not the case. And this was actually a real hard thing for me because my whole business was like freedom from the 9 to 5. And then I was like, oh gosh, it's not that. And I had to really go through this season of letting go of a 7-figure cash business. That is stretchy as fuck because there's a lot of reasons why you should keep a business that generates $1 million a year. What we want actually is sovereignty. So let me distinguish the two. Freedom means you can do anything that you want. It still has a little bit of a ring of external enforcement. Sovereignty means you have have the discernment that of everything that you could do, you know what's yours to do. You're completely internally sourced. It's like a totally different experience. And part of what brought this to be was my first trip to Egypt, where I learned about Ma'at, who we did the 42 ideals with. And the ancient Egyptians believed that when you pass into the afterlife, your heart is going to be weighed against a feather on the scales. And if your heart is as light as a feather, then you get to ascend. And so I started using this as a filter for everything. Like, what feels light as a feather? Not only in business and life, relationships, everything. And so consider in your life, when you're thinking through, like, what feels light as a feather and versus what feels heavy as fuck. Those are the things that's like maybe time to shed. Now, I know everybody wants codes from Egypt, so this is the code that I got on this last trip, and I'm actually still processing it myself. Does anyone in here speak Arabic? Can you say this? Because I want them to hear what it's actually pronounced as, because I'll butcher it. Do you know it?
I don't know this at all.
Okay.
You have it.
Does anyone know this word in Arabic? All right, you're stuck with me. This word is dala. There's like a sound at the end that I don't do, but dala is something that I experienced on this last trip. And what dala means is you're allowing yourself to be completely lavished. You're in ultimate reception. Think of it like there's not a direct translation, but it's almost like you allow yourself to be spoiled, to be completely taken care of. It is the essence of, like, the highest essence of feminine divine, Dala. And so I did not go to Egypt for a breakthrough in my marriage, but I sure did have one. Because Dala is this intersection of self-worth, softness, and sacred pleasure. And what I saw for myself is that I'm married to this extraordinary man who really just wants to take care of me. You know, but I'm like this independent, I don't need you type woman. It's like how I was brought up to just not need anybody. And it's not like a needing, like not to be dependent on a man, but to allow him to be in his essence. And I never would have thought that I'd say this on stage. This is definitely a letting go of identity. But I believe in equality, but I don't believe our roles are equal. And this is a big one because, you know, I noticed for myself, like, when I shared this breakthrough of, like, my husband just wants to freaking take care of me. Like, he'll start cooking and I'm like, hey, what can I help with? And he's like, nothing. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, fine, just sit on the couch, relax. And I'm like, I'll sit on the couch for maybe 30 seconds, and then I'll start doing the dishes, like unloading the dishwasher, and he's like, what don't you get? I just want you to sit down and relax while I make dinner. And I, like, literally can't allow it. And I noticed it even just, like, coming back from the airport. I have all these bags, and he opens the trunk, and he's, like, trying to fit them in. And, you know, honestly, like, cognitively, I'm a little bit, like, quicker with things like Tetris and suitcases and trunks. So I immediately wanted to be like, oh, I think you should flip the bag and do this. And he just was like, you just got back from 40 hours of traveling. Just let me, like, he was just like, what is your, and I kind of realized that my next era is an era of more softness. And so here's, like, the basic principles of it. So the energetic core is radical receiving, right? So you don't have to earn affection. You don't have to do anything to be validated. It's like, just let the universe pour its sugar on you, right? And it's not that being cherished or being taken care of weakens you. It's just allowing you to be replenished. The second thing in the power dynamic, and also, like, I don't mean that this has to be, like, male, female. It's just energetics. So in this power dynamic of reverence, it's not that the person in feminine energy has to be submissive, and it's not about being needy or manipulative. These are wounded feminine energies. It's about softness, allowing their delight in delighting you. Have you ever experienced this where, like, how many of you are givers? Like, you like to give. It's a room full of givers. I knew. don't you love it when you give and then people receive and you see how happy, like, you are delighted in the delight that you provide them? Okay, what if you were to allow flip the script and allow people to delight in your delight? See, when I got a divorce and was a single mom, my brother actually picked up my son every day from school and made me dinner because I was a crazy corporate executive for 4 years. 4 years of making me dinners. I don't know what 4 years times 5 times a week, that's a lot of dinners. And picking up my son, and I remember one day feeling so guilty, and I said to my brother, I don't know if I'm ever gonna repay you. How am I ever gonna make this up to you? And I'll never forget, because he just stopped, and he looked at me, and he said, I don't think you know that I don't know how to repay you. Because I'm retired, you and taking care of your family brings me life, brings me joy, brings me meaning. And my brother is married to a man, so he's like, me and my husband, we always wanted a kid, and we never could have a kid. And I get to help my sister rebuild her life and get to spend time with my nephew? How do I repay you? Do you guys see like the circle of this? It's like, allow others to be a contribution to you. It doesn't mean that you're not a contribution to others, but like every once in a while, let the dollar come your way. It really is a lot about embodiment too when you're in the dala, right? It's that inner joy of a child, giggling and just sighing and being in that like, oh my God, it's just safe to let go. And it's like your inner child is running, but you're still a grown woman, right? You still have your sovereignty. You're not giving that up. And it's such an alchemical process because you become the reasons other people want to give. Like, they're just like, it's like a flywheel, actually. And your very presence in allowing the Dala invites devotion, creativity, and generosity. It is literally a frequency of complete abundance. Like, do you guys just love this idea? I'm like, Dala. In Arabic, they also say yalla, like, let's go. It's like, yalla, let's Dala. Let's do this. All right, so this is really, again, as I said, as the independent woman who can do everything, and she's meeting herself in the wise feminine, realizing she doesn't have to, right? So it's looping back to that whole idea of sovereignty again. All right, so how do you create your identity shift? I'm gonna do some nerding out here. So basically when you're in identity, you're in one of these 5 stages. None of them are better than the other. It's just where you happen to be. So the first one this is also very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've ever seen it. So for me in the very beginning, my self-needs was like, I was bankrupt. I needed to make money and have flexible time, right? And then after you have that layer of being able to be taken care of, you have the money that you need, etc., the time that you need, then you're gonna raise to your self-expression where you do the things that you like, right? And then there's self-development, where you're in a space, in a season of growth and expansion. And then you will ascend to contributing to others, so you're actually having other people come up through the ranks. And then, of course, the highest stage is contribution to the world. And this isn't really linear. You're gonna like cycle through them, and there's no one's better. It's just what is. So given the season that you're in, so go ahead and look at this season. Can I go ahead? The season that you're in, what is your current why? See, for me, when I was bankrupt and a newly single mom, my current why was like, I just need to take care of me and my kid. But you need to have a why that's really powerful. And it can't be something like, I want freedom, or I want to be happy, or I want to have, it can't be something soft like that. It has to be something that, like, when you think about it, you become unstoppable. When you're like, small self is like, I don't want to do this is really hard, I'm really scared. It's got to be a why that's so powerful that it just makes you go, fuck it, I'm doing it. It gives you courage. Does that kind of make sense? And again, your whys will change. So my why today isn't the same as it used to be. Also, when you're going through identity shift, there's this concept, and this is actually from a program of mine called Edge of Evolution, which at the end, I'll give you the QR code so you can, it'll be gifted to you. But the hardest part that I found about identity shifting is that if you're anything like me, raise your hand. do you have like an attachment to the timeline? Like, I want this to happen really fast, this is taking way too long. And do you also have like an attachment to seeing tangible results like clients or money, right? Like it's very common. But the thing about shifting identities is that there's an ROI that's invisible and you can't see it yet. And that's really like the ROI of rebuilding your capacity. And that's just really important because you're going through a recalibration season and you're becoming something new. So you're really like in this stretch point because you're not only managing an identity shift of whatever it is, but you're also metabolizing and working through all this emotional residue that's been coming up as you shift. And you're also building more capacity for visibility, responsibility, etc. So just know that it's a stretch. Like I loved listening to, if you were here yesterday, Christine, when you are a caterpillar going into the cocoon to transform into the butterfly, do you guys know that the caterpillar has to turn to goo? Yeah, the goo doesn't feel great. Like it's not fun. You're like, I'm tired of the goo. How long till I get my wings, you know? But you have to just kind of like almost allow it to go because what I have found is that when you try to force the timeline, you can get to your next level identity, but you know what you also just did? You just created another identity shift that's coming sooner. Does that make sense? Because like you didn't let the full processing happen, so you half-stepped identity. Let go of the timeline and let it, like, it's gonna always work perfectly because you're co-creating with something greater than you. There's basically 3 pathways. I'm not gonna go into them, but I wanted to share this with you because it is in Edge of Evolution. The matrix path, probably many of you are not in it. The matrix path is when you're really like driven by mainstream external sources. You're here today, you invested time, energy, and money to be at this event. So you're probably not in the matrix path. The potential path is you're not so affected by circumstance, but you still are kind of externally sourcing. And the ascension path is when you can have identity shifting and evolution very quickly, like you are a master at it, because you realize that you are the creator of circumstance. It's not the other way around. And you have your own internal metric system. So if this is lighting you up, you're gonna love Edge of Evolution, and because we go really nerdy in it. Okay, so here are the success steps for not only your identity shift, but really anything. So the first thing is, you're gonna be in the process of letting go, right? Letting go of patterns and beliefs. And you're gonna be upgrading them. Now the biggest thing that I've noticed is your relationship to failure. Or if you're sitting in an energy of like, things are good or they're bad. They're right or they're wrong. We get really binary, right? Like that's just human and we've been indoctrinated to think that way. What was a big expansion point for me is instead of thinking of everything as right, wrong, good, bad, because that just fucks you up when you're like, man, I did that wrong, or wow, I'm bad, or it's not happening, is really to flip it to like, what's working and what's not working. And when I created that new context of like, when I quote failed, I realized that failure is only one of 2 things. It's either an area that you're still learning and developing, or it's an area that you need support. That's all it really needs. And so whenever I failed, or AKA didn't get a result that I expected or wanted, all I ask, and all there is to ask is, what didn't work? What was missing? What could have been put in that would have me get different results? So in success, stage 1 is ideation. This is the one everyone loves. It's super fun, it's super sexy. You're like a child with ideas and dreams. And your ability to even get in this stage is just allowing yourself to dream. You know, there's so many people who are resigned and they can't even dream. And you're just like that willingness. So you guys all have stage 1 down. You would not be here otherwise. Stage 2 is when you put those ideas into action. And it's binary. You're either gonna remember to do it, or you're gonna forget to do it. And what moves the needle in stage 2 is, do you set up structures for success so that you remember? And what's your relationship to word? Like when you say you're gonna do something, do you have the integrity to do it? So most people cycle in, oh my gosh, I have this amazing idea. I'm going to be more visible. And you're really amped up on it. I'm gonna be more visible, but you never brought any tangibility. Like, what does that mean? What am I going to do to be visible and by when, and then you don't have a system to remember. Is this tracking? And then if you get past that, you will get into the results phase where you're either gonna fail or succeed, right? So the only thing that really matters there is your resilience and your conversations, your relationship to failure. And then once you get to a pattern where you're like, oh, I can succeed, I can make it happen, then you go into consistency where either your results are up and down or they're very predictable. And this right here is like, can you identify patterns and create the systems? So that's basically the 4 steps to success. And what I have found is that conversations in community are powerful structures. See, I have some structures. I have a lot of stuff on my calendar. I have a lot of alarms that remind me to do things. But I also invest in community, and I invest in relationships. Not only time, energy, but also money that have me show up. You know, it's like, I'm rooted with Andy. Why? Because left to my own devices, I'm gonna forget about my nervous system tomorrow. But I have a structure set up, right? I have someone who's in my corner. And when you're thinking about your structures and your setup, one of the things that I learned from my very first mentor is find someone who has what you want, do what they do, and you'll get what they got. It's not rocket science. Find someone who has what you want, do what they do, and you'll get what they got. And also you guys all together as a community. You're each other's structures. So I would love, this is the very last thing, and then I'm done, but let's create a structure right now. So think about something that you really want coming out of this weekend. What's an action that you want to take? Do you guys all have something in mind? Something, and don't make it crazy. Make it something small and doable. It's about doing things consistently over time that moves the needle. 1% improvement a day, if you do it consistently, stacks to 3,800% growth in 1 year, if you can just focus on the 1%. The trick is, 1% is easy to forget because it doesn't feel that momentous. So what's your 1% thing? My 1% thing is adding dala into my life. My 1% thing, my dala is just like when someone's like, can I help you with that? I'm like, yes, that sounds great. So what's yours? Do you guys have one? Can you share it with someone sitting next to you? Or someone in this room? Do you guys all promise that the one thing that you do, you're gonna share it with someone before today ends, and that you're gonna hold each other accountable? Do I have your word in that? Yes? Yeah, it's something that you're gonna do like in the next few days. It doesn't matter when. You're gonna say, I'm gonna do X by Y. Right, so it's like, I'm going to release my new masterclass by Wednesday. And you tell that other person, and they're your accountability person. Because once you speak something to existence, it has more form and tangibility. Is that clear? Does anyone have questions? Okay. So, here's the code if you want Edge of Evolution. You ever just enter in the promo code Fempire. I am just touched, moved, and inspired by this room. Thank you for witnessing me in my Edge of Evolution and also letting go of this last identity and into my new one. I love you, I honor you, connect with me. I'd love to be in your corner. Thank you.